My number 5 wide receiver in the 2021 NFL Draft is Florida wide receiver Kadarius Toney. This is a guy that I think you're banking on upside here. You got one massive year of production. I'm excited that that massive year of production happened to be his final year on the campus of Florida. So that gives me hope and optimism that the last I saw of Kadarius Toney was the best I saw of him, which means the trajectory arrow is pointing upward and he's starting to get it. That said, he's still extremely raw, still got a long ways to go, which is why he's 5th on my list. So let's flip his card over and talk about what Kadarius Toney brings to the table. So you start with, obviously, his speed and acceleration. He's a 4.41 guy. That's what he ran at his pro day. Not surprised by that at all. When you watch him on tape, you know the guy is fast. You know he's got some acceleration. He's got some juice. He's got some wheels. He can separate, can get vertical. And so those are the things that are going to help him right now. But it's not the only thing he brings to the table right now. Outside of that speed, I think the next biggest quality is his quickness and agility. His ability to snap dudes off and just break them off and get open and separate. And when you watch him work underneath, he's going to be problematic at the next level for linebackers, and nickel corners, and safeties that want to drop over the slot. He's going to work some of those dudes over. And just when you start looking for something underneath, he's going to snap it off and go vertical, and there isn't a damn thing you're going to be able to do about it. And he's still evolving as a receiver, but it's fun to watch him work underneath because of the separation that he's able to create. And that's why him being a vertical threat is so dynamic, because you start to worry about some of the things he can do underneath. And then right when you come up, he runs by you. And I watched him run by quite a few corners in 2020 to really establish himself as a legitimate threat, as a pass catcher. You know, that wasn't the deal going into 2020. He was just an athlete, a guy that you try to get it to in space and hope that he breaks a couple tackles and makes something happen. He turned into a guy you could actually throw it to and have him make something happen with the football. So he is a vertical threat, someone that can stretch the football field, take the top off the defense. Solid hands. His hands aren't something that you get excited about, but they're not terrible. You know, for a guy that wasn't a wide receiver when he showed up on the U of F campus, his hands are really solid. You know, you're going to get the occasional drop every now and again, but his hands, I'm content with them. If they didn't get any better, I'm content with what he's put on film in terms of his ability to catch the football. Run after catch and make you miss. Right now, his run after the catch and his ability to stick his foot in the ground and just absolutely break a dude down, it's filthy. But you know what else is outstanding watching him, and it's fun to watch, is his contact balance. And you don't generally get that with smaller guys. Not at the receiver position, at least. You know, normally the big physical receivers are the guys, the Michael Thomases of the world, are the guys that you try to lean a shoulder into and they just bounce off you and keep running. When we talk about contact balance, is usually reserved for running backs, not receivers. Most of the time you hit a receiver and his legs, you go down low, they fall down. This is a guy that I'm watching just pinball. He's for a guy that's 5'11", about $185, $190. I'm watching him pinball off of defenders left and right. And I'm like, are you serious? I can't tell you how many times this guy he's boxed in dead to rights. There's no way he's escaping this. And somehow he comes out the other side and he's strolling and strutting into the end zone. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. There were 4 defenders there. How did nobody get him on the ground? I remember the first time I laid eyes on Kadarius Toney. First time was back in 2018. I believe it was against Miami to start the season off. It's like the Camping World bowl game or whatever. It's not a bowl game. It was like that was like the sponsor of that game or whatever. And I remember watching that game, And he catches a little, hitch outside. And they're like 3 Miami defenders, and somehow he slithers his way through 2 of them, and the last guy's got a chance to bump him down or out of bounds, and he just bumps off that guy and just takes off down the sidelines. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I could tell he was supposed to be some kind of big recruit because in Chris Fowler's voice, and that's the young Kadarius Toney, and he can go, and he's gone. And I'm like, oh, man, okay. And I watched him do that throughout the course of his career. Contact balance is really exceptional for Kadarius Toney. Can create separation. I already talked about that. This guy and his ability to stick his foot in the ground and break a dude off. His whip route gives defenders whiplash. I'm watching a guy, he thinks he's running a slant. He sticks his foot in the ground and goes back outside, and that guy's still running on a slant or a shallow cross. I'm like, damn. Pick your underwear up, bruh. So, he doesn't run a ton of routes right now. The route tree is not his friend right now. But the limited routes he was given, man, does he run the shit out of them. And he can create some separation, running every single one of them. Dynamic ability with ball in his hand. And that's kind of what I talked about already with the contact balance and the speed and his ability to stick his foot in the ground and dead leg somebody and break them off. He's just a guy that is a dynamo in space. You just give him the football, watch out. This guy could make something happen, be electric at any point. He could take it to the house. And so that leads us to our last 2 strengths, versatility and special teams value. He's a guy that you move around, not necessarily formational flex because you're not putting him out wide. He's not a X or a Z. He's a slot and only a slot. But you can also line him up in the backfield. You can also send him in motion. You can also run jet sweeps with him. You can also put him in the backfield as a running back, which they did at Florida because in high school, he was a quarterback / running back and a damn good one. So there are different things you can do with him. So he is a very versatile wide receiver / athlete. And he brings special teams value to the table. He's a guy that can return kicks, does have a kickoff return, or a punt return for a touchdown in his career. He, as a matter of fact, he did that in 2020. So he does bring some of that to the table as well. You could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, looking to upgrade the speed on your offense at the receiver position, and you also are searching for some dynamic ability in the special teams returns game. This guy may be able to handle all of that for you, and then some. So weaknesses. Ex-quarterback, running back, still learning the position. You could look at it as a strength where you say, hey, that's upside. He's just scratching the surface. Or you could look at it as a weakness and say, he's got a lot of work to do. And this could be the best of Kadarius Toney. Like, he may not get any better. This might be who he is at the next level for the next 7 years. So we'll see. He's still, to me, learning. And if he continues to evolve, who knows what he could turn into, Limited to slot use only. When I say that in the most kindest, gentle way. He's not a guy you can play out wide. He's not a guy that's an X or a Z. He's a slot receiver. Now, as I mentioned, you can do different things with him. You can move him in motion. You can put him in the backfield. You can put him as a wing guy and have him start across one side of the field and drift off to the other side on play action on a boot and leak out to the other side on the flats and just do different things with him as they did at Florida with him. He may not run a ton of routes right now, but there's a lot of things you can do with him. You can give him the football on the jet sweep. You can throw it to him on a bubble and just get him involved that way. You can run him underneath a bunch of times, and right when you load the defense to sleep, get him on a sluggo. And boom, he's vertically, and the safety can't get over in time. You got him. So, but he's a slot guy right now, and probably always going to be relegated to the slot. Not a 50-50 ball winner. Plus, his injury history is something to consider as well. He missed 6 games with the left shoulder injury in 2019. Seems like he was always missing a game. Never had a season where he played in every single game. So that's something else to keep in mind. is that this is a guy that you have to monitor. High maintenance athlete is what I call these kinds of guys. They normally need some kind of maintenance in the shop. So he's not a guy you throw it up to and say, hey, you're an explosive guy. You got some hops. Go get it. No, he doesn't track it well in the air down the field where he has to stop. He can track it over his shoulder and go get it, but he's not a stop, plant, jump, and go up and get the football over a guy. He's not comfortable in that scenario. So don't throw it up to him and say, hey, it's one-on-one. I'm going to give my guy a chance. He's not the guy to do that with. If he's got a step, let it rip. Let him run under it. But don't have it be underthrown and he's got to stop and go up and make a play. That's not who he is. 1 year wonder. I mean, when we look at Kadarius Toney, it's just 1 year, man. Everything else looks really pedestrian. 2017, 8 games played in. 15 receptions, 152 yards, no touchdowns. 14 rushes, 120 yards, 1 touchdown. No impact in the returns game. In 2018, 12 games. That's the most games he's ever played in. 25 receptions for 260, 1 touchdown. 21 rushes for 240, no touchdowns. No impact whatsoever in the returns game in 18. In 19, that was the season marred by injury. He had the left shoulder injury. And so only 7 games, only 10 catches, only 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 12 carries, 59 yards, limited to no impact there, and no impact in the returns game in 2019. 2020 was the year that he broke out and finally showcased all of the skills that people got excited about and feel like he can bring to the table at the next level. 11 games, 70 grabs, 984 yards, 10 touchdowns, 19 carries, 161 yards, another touchdown there, 11 returns for 139 yards and a touchdown as a punt returner, and another 7 returns for 155 yards in the kickoff return game, all career highs, every single last one of those stats. So essentially, you got 1 year out of Kadarius Toney. Is this what he's going to be moving forward? Or was this 1 year an aberration? Just something to think about. I'd like to think that he's peaking at the right time. And he's only going to get better. And then finally, he's useless as a blocker. Some of that is size. Some of that is effort and want to. He just doesn't. It's like he's like, I'm too small. I can't block. Don't mind me. I'll try to get in the way. But, hey, I'm 5'9", $185. What are we doing here? Like, I don't do this. I don't block. He's useless in that regard. If you're trying to run a bubble screen or you're trying to run the ball, don't run it to his side. Don't have him be a blocker on a bubble screen just because you're trying to throw that team off of a tendency. Oh, Kadarius Toney's over there. He's probably going to get a bubble in a bunch formation. So you want to throw it to somebody. Don't have him because that guy that he's supposed to block is going to make the tackle. Just don't waste your time. Projection. Mid to late first round. I think he goes off the board in the teens, early 20s at the latest. I don't think he's a guy that lasts until 27 or 29. I think somebody's going to fall in love with the talent, the athleticism, the speed, and I think he's going to come off the board sooner rather than later. I don't think he's going to find his way to the second round, unlike Terrence Marshall or Rashad Bateman, who could find their way to the second round. I don't think Kadarius Toney gets out of the first round. I said this before I had even watched him on film, that he was Curtis Samuel. I'm doubling down on that. I think I was spot on. And I had only watched, like, in passing his tape at that time. And I said, he's Curtis Samuel. He's Curtis Samuel. He's a much more polished wide receiver version of Curtis Samuel when Samuel was coming into the league. Samuel was more of still a natural running back that was still transitioning to wide receiver when he was drafted. Kadarius Toney is a little bit further along in the process, but it's the same thing. He's still not a natural receiver. He's still more comfortable as a running back, and he's still got a lot of learning to do, but he's fast, he's dynamic, and you got to find ways to give him the football just like you got to find ways to get Curtis Samuel the football in your offense. So Kadarius Toney, my number 5 wide receiver in this draft.
LouieTeeNetwork.